In this version, the mission to Mortis did not begin as a simple response to a call from the Force, but as a mysterious gravitational anomaly detected by the Republic fleet's sensors. An entire system had appeared and disappeared at intervals that were impossible to calculate. Anakin was the only one sent to investigate, guided by an energy that enveloped him as soon as he approached. When he awoke, he was not on a ship, but on an ancient land shaped by the Force. There he found not only the daughter, the son, and the father, but also fragments of his own destiny. The clash between light and darkness was even more violent than that recorded in the holocrons, and when the balance was broken, Anakin's memories were not erased. Upon leaving Mortis, Anakin carried with him not only the physical marks of his duels with the son, but also the deep anguish caused by the visions that the daughter had entrusted to him. He had seen the Jedi Temple in ruins, small, defenseless bodies fallen under red lightsabers, and felt the pain of an empire being born amid cries of order. But among the shadows, there were also glimpses of an alternative path, the possibility of stopping this future, of refusing Palpatine's call, of saving not only the Republic, but himself. This was not a nightmare. It was a warning. And Anakin, with his fist clenched, swore that he would not let it happen, even if he was still in doubt. Back in Coruscant, Anakin wasted no time in seeking out Obi-Wan and telling him about his memories. High up in the tower, amid the floating gardens and the sounds of the city below, the two stared at each other in silence for a moment before Anakin broke the burden he carried. "I saw the end of everything, Master. I saw us being destroyed from within." Obi-Wan, skeptical but always attentive to his pupil's gaze, asked, "Was it just a vision?" Anakin shook his head. "No, it was more than that. The Force showed me. I can't explain exactly how, but it's real." Obi-Wan replied in the same thoughtful tone he always used. "Anakin, visions of the future are uncertain, but if you are so convinced, we cannot ignore it." The seed of doubt was planted. Padme was the second to hear the truth. Alone in the room they shared in secret, Anakin held her hand tightly, as if afraid she would escape with the reality. "If what I saw is true, you and our child will not be safe. None of us will be." Padme listened to him with teary eyes. "You have to do what you think is right, Anakin, but don't let it consume you. Don't fight for revenge, fight for justice." Her words echoed inside him as a reminder of what was still worth protecting. And Anakin began to prepare, in silence, to change destiny. Tension erupted when a Jedi Master was killed in cold blood by a clone during a patrol mission on a distant planet. The case seemed like a mistake, until the clone escaped and upon being captured, shouted incoherent phrases about supreme orders and Jedi traitors. Anakin dove into the investigation and didn't rest until he traced the soldier's behavior to Kamino. There he confirmed the existence of inhibitor chips implanted in all the clones, a hidden protocol that, when activated, would force them to eliminate any Jedi. Now he had proof and could show it to the Masters. The revelation hit the Jedi Council like a thunderbolt. The Masters gathered urgently. Mace Windu and Ki-Adi-Mundi were heated, while Obi-Wan kept his eyes fixed on Anakin, waiting for the moment when he would ask to speak and reveal everything he had been told nights before. Yoda, silent, felt the Force stirring. When Anakin finally spoke, the hall fell silent. He revealed the visions of Mortis, what he had been shown, and how it aligned with the chips he had confirmed on Kamino, with the hidden manipulation of the war. Obi-Wan stood beside his pupil and supported every word Anakin said as if they were his own. And Yoda finally spoke. "Warning from the Force, this seems to be. Illusions these are not." By joint order, the Jedi ordered all clone operations to be halted and prepared a mission to investigate Palpatine. The mission was precise, but it failed in its essential purpose. Palpatine was not in his tower. His office was intact, with no signs of a struggle, just emptiness. During a session of the Galactic Senate, a holoprojector was activated. The figure of the Chancellor appeared before all the senators and political figures. With a calm voice, and his face covered by projected shadows, he accused the Jedi of treason. "My friends, I have been warned by a powerful entity, a son of the Force itself, and so I fled to protect myself. A new hologram began to play. It was security camera footage showing the Jedi and their guards entering the tower, lightsabers drawn. The Senate erupted in chaos. The holocanals broadcast Palpatine's words live. He showed real footage of the Jedi storming his office, suggesting an attempted coup by the Order. The recordings had been strategically manipulated to hide the real intentions of the mission. While you slept, I tried to protect the peace. They, on the other hand, came with war in their hands. Palpatine ended his speech by saying that the time of the Jedi was over, and that a new order was about to be born, guided not by mysticism, but by strength and stability. The Jedi were stunned. Mace Windu stood up and shouted that it was a hoax, but there was no way to refute the images without appearing even more guilty. Yoda, incredulous, asked how Palpatine could be in contact with a Force entity, and why no one on the council had ever sensed this presence. It was then that, with a voice heavy with meaning, he murmured, "Divided is the Force. Acting, the Son is." Even he had no concrete answer, and fear began to set in among the Masters, but he was the only one who understood that, if Anakin really had returned with his memories because of the daughter, then the Son had acted through Palpatine to prevent her from winning. In the basement of the Jedi Temple, Anakin paced furiously. How did he know about the Son? How did he turn this against us so quickly? Obi-Wan watched him silently before replying. He knows how to play with half-truths. That's what makes him so dangerous. We must be cautious until we find out where he's hiding. Anakin's anguish turned to anger, but Padme, who had been watching them, approached and placed her hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing. They'll see that, eventually. But until then, the storm was just beginning to brew in the corridors of the Republic. As night fell over Coruscant, the towers of the Jedi Temple remained lit. The Masters gathered once again, now fearing that Palpatine, using fear and confusion, was about to seize powers he would never relinquish. Mace Windu pressed for immediate military action. Yoda pondered. Obi-Wan suggested caution. And Anakin, staring down at the city below, muttered to himself, "If we can't defeat him with words, then perhaps the Force must speak for us." In the Senate, Palpatine appeared on a projection, smiling discreetly as he received support from fearful delegates. He was no longer cornered, despite being hidden in a secret location. He had turned the tables, pitting the Jedi against the very institution they were supposed to protect. The crowd of senators and holograms reacted with restrained applause. But the real echo was one of doubt and panic. And when the holographic images did not show him, Palpatine turned his face to the side, and for a brief second, let the cynical, dark smile surface. The war was no longer a matter of time. It had begun. The chaos that ensued after the public accusation of the Jedi turned into open war. Palpatine, hidden and acting from the shadows, issued the final protocol. Order 66 was activated, but this time, it found a Jedi Order that was prepared. They had already gathered most of the clone forces since Anakin returned with the truth about the chips. Several Masters and Knights had already dispersed following the Council's recommendations. Still, the fraction of clones that remained loyal to the Chancellor quickly organized brutal offensives against smaller temples, support bases, and isolated posts. There were losses, but the Jedi, alert and united, were not so easily defeated. The galaxy was split into two blocks. Those who still obeyed the old regime, and those who saw the collapse as a chance to start over. The Jedi managed to regroup in safe zones and created a new communications network independent of the Senate. Obi-Wan and Anakin began to lead resistance operations, often alongside former allies of the Republic who now refused to follow senseless orders. The war changed form. It was no longer a confrontation between separatists and the Republic, but between freedom and tyranny. In the Senate, the political battle became as fierce as it was in the streets. Accusations against Palpatine grew, supported by senators such as Bail Organa and Padme, who was at the forefront of all discussions and fighting for the truth of the Jedi, while others, out of fear or self-interest, insisted on remaining neutral or submissive. She was proving to be a tremendous leader there. Tension mounted, and the trail of destruction spread across previously neutral planets. During a secret mission, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and other Jedi were ambushed in a local underground bar. Infiltrated clones had tracked their movements and were waiting for the right moment to attack. The battle was brutal. Lightsabers cut through the air as shots ricocheted everywhere. Sympathetic civilians, armed with improvised technology, helped the Jedi escape through underground tunnels. In the chaos, Anakin led the escape, protecting a group of young Padawans hidden among the rubble. That scene, captured by clandestine transmitters, spread across the galaxy and further inflamed tempers. The Jedi were not traitors. They were survivors of a trap. With no clear alternatives and needing to turn the tide once and for all, the Jedi Council authorized an offensive against the remaining Separatist leaders. Mace Windu, Yoda, Anakin, and Obi-Wan led a daring mission to capture Dooku on Mustafar. After an intense and exhausting battle, Dooku was defeated. But upon being arrested, he agreed to make a broadcast when he realized that his master had abandoned him to die at the hands of the Jedi. In a broadcast to everyone, he revealed to the Senate and the entire galaxy that Sidious and Palpatine were the same person. He said he had been manipulated from the beginning, that the war had been a charade created by Palpatine to accumulate power. He wants to be more than Chancellor. He wants to be Emperor. His words echoed like thunder in the Senate. The truth could no longer be contained. The public revelation brought a wave of revolt across the galaxy. Previously neutral senators now pressed for answers. Entire systems declared their support for the Jedi, offering fleets and planetary armies to the cause of restoration. Clone troops who had removed their chips began to join the resistance. The Separatists themselves, confused and abandoned, began to surrender their positions and information. With the moral advantage and popular support, the war turned. Palpatine, increasingly cornered, disappeared completely from the public sphere. But an important prisoner revealed the truth. He had never left Coruscant. He was hiding in the city's underground, in a secret bunker surrounded by a private army of droids, clones, and Separatist soldiers. The final offensive was organized with absolute precision. The new alliance formed by Jedi, freed troops, armed civilians, and even former Separatists surrounded the hidden tunnels of Coruscant. Block by block, Palpatine's defenders were defeated. The fight was long and marked by brutal underground combat. The sound of sabers and explosions echoed through the galleries as Anakin led the advance toward the center of the fortress. Facing the last barrier, he climbed onto the wreckage and addressed the soldiers still protecting the dictator. "This war is not yours. You don't have to die for a man who never gave you a choice. Surrender him now, and you will be spared." Some wavered, but before any surrender could take place, one of the captains opened fire on his own men. The betrayal was met with a new assault. The final battle erupted inside the bunker itself. The soldiers loyal to Palpatine were disorganized and confused. Many turned against their commanders. A mutiny broke out within the walls. Obi-Wan and Mace led the rear, while Yoda took a squad down an alternate flank. The bunker's structure began to crumble from within. Bodies fell on both sides, and in the center of it all, the dark figure of Palpatine himself stood, shrouded in darkness and hatred. He would not surrender, ever. Suddenly, Palpatine emerged from the smoke. Force lightning shot from his hands, destroying armor and shattering helmets. He shouted ancient words in Sith, cursing all who dared to betray him. Soldiers who tried to retreat were crushed against the walls with the Force. Even his allies, already in despair, were targets of his fury. He was the embodiment of the end, and he did not intend to fall without taking everyone with him. But the number of enemies was too great, and his energy, though colossal, was not infinite. They surrounded him, they shouted, they advanced. The massacre was brutal and merciless. Palpatine fought to his last breath, destroying many, but in the end his own soldiers, once his loyal dogs of war, overpowered him out of fear of his madness. Their screams were drowned out by even louder blaster fire. The Jedi, shocked, were unable to prevent the lynching. It was the end of an era. Palpatine, the architect of the Republic's destruction, was torn apart by the echoes of his own tyranny. His body, shattered, was thrown out of the bunker, rolling among the wreckage of his last stronghold like a symbol of the fall of fear. The sounds of battle ceased. The Jedi looked up and saw hundreds of soldiers dropping their weapons. The war was over. On the ground, next to the dictator's body, lay the lightsaber he should never have wielded. Anakin, tired and covered in soot, approached. He took a deep breath. "May the Force guide us, now more than ever." Obi-Wan placed his hand on his shoulder, and they both gazed at the sky of Coruscant slowly opening with the light of the new day. It was the end of an empire that never was, and the beginning of something still undefined, but with hope.